Tennessee fans have been angry as of late. Now, Tennessee fans have been angry over the years for several different reasons. I've largely had their back. I think that since you invest to the degree you do, you have the right to get a little angry, get a little aggravated about the state of the program, which has been nothing to write home about for several years now. But I was perusing, you know how rarely I use that word, I was perusing the Vols 24/7 board 2 days ago, or maybe yesterday. And I came across a thread about Henry To'oTo'o. Now, we've already talked about him on Late Kick. He was the big-time linebacker transfer, went from Tennessee to Alabama. That happened last week. So this is not a Henry T segment, although it inspired it. So there were a couple people on there, really. There were several people. It was started by one person. There was a thread on the board. And a guy was just expressing complete and utter disgust that Henry had left, and that a lot of Tennessee players had wished him so well, and they had patted him on the back and shaken his hand and saluted him and done everything but pack his bags for him on the way out the door, and he had gone to Alabama. Okay, and this guy is very, very aggravated about it, if not just outright pissed about it. And I got it. A lot of people didn't get it. So there was about a 5 or 6 page deep thread on the message board there, and there were people on one corner saying, this is our big rival, man. Like Alabama, this stuff used to mean something. What happened to the rest? Why aren't all of you aggravated by this? But then there was another side saying, if you're getting bent out of shape about where a kid's transferring, then you got a problem. You got a heart problem there, buddy. It's not all that serious. It's just college football. Well, that really summed up the 2 points of view there. I'm falling somewhere on this that I don't think a lot of you would expect me to fall. Because I got to ask you, so let me get your opinion on it. I like talking this stuff through with you. What do you think's okay? What's okay to be angry about? Not in life, well, maybe in life, but zoom it in. Just college football. What's okay to be angry? I mean, if you order tickets and they don't get sent to you, you'd be angry. You wasted a lot of money. Okay, well, if your wife looks at you and says, it's just football, that doesn't make you feel any better. All right, but that's personal to you. So I guess it all depends on how invested you are into your program. You've seen me talk about this from varying degrees and angles a few times on here. There are some people out there in our ecosystem, the college football media sphere, that really like to denigrate passionate fans. And they like to dunk on you, and they like to look down their nose at you, even though you're the reason they get to draw a paycheck to do what we do for a living. I've never done that. I appreciate passion. I would much rather someone be one step too far than 5 steps short of being passionate and rabid, basically the way it feels like it used to be. It's not always good for things to be the way they used to be. But there are some aspects of this sport I wish I could hit the rewind button on about 15 or 20 years. And one of them is the way that this rivalry, the particular one we're talking about here, this Tennessee-Bama rivalry, the way it feels. Because it don't feel now the way it used to feel. And based on where I was raised, it doesn't feel the way that it should feel. I'm a believer competitive hatred is fine. There ain't nothing wrong with competitive hatred. As long as you don't go full Harvey Updike and start poisoning trees, that's that 5 or 10 steps too far I'm talking about. We're not going Updike mode, okay? So put the squash on Updike protocol. Find wherever that button is and just dewire it. We don't want that. But it's okay to hate your rival in a competitive sense. Not hating the people, hating the rival in a competitive sense. And some older Tennessee fans feel that. Some of the younger Tennessee fans don't even know. You don't even know to hate Alabama competitively, of course. So you don't have to go into Updike mode, is what I'm telling you. But it should get under your skin, to put a finer point on it, that your players from Knoxville look in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and not only do they get attracted by what's down there, they go down there, and there's really no hang-up. It's just kind of, oh, well, very little resistance. In fact, a lot of people, it feels like you got a tailwind. They're kind of pushing you down there. Did everything, like I said, but pack your bags. And there seems to be a misinterpretation of the source of anger here. Tennessee fans, most of them, aren't angry at the individual. They're not angry at Henry To'oTo'o. Maybe some are. But I think the real anger is steeped in the fact that this whole thing's going down and there's so little pushback. There's so little anger or resentment towards it. And the problem is, if you're a true freshman right now, you could barely walk or talk the last time Tennessee beat Alabama. And what that's done is it's warped the perspective. This used to be a hellacious rivalry. It used to be one of, if not the very biggest rivalries, the third Saturday in October in the SEC. If you're of a certain age, when you grew up, that was it. It wasn't the Iron Bowl. It wasn't Tennessee, Florida. It was Tennessee, Alabama. A lot of good literature out there on it. But the problem is, if you're 17, you probably hadn't read it, and you're not living it. And so you got some kids up at Tennessee that look at it and say, well, he transferred to Alabama, so what? I mean, Well, how's that any different than transferring to Georgia or Auburn? It's a big difference. The problem that a lot of Tennessee fans have, and the reason they're so up in arms and aggravated about this, is because everyone's not echoing the same sentiment they are when they're looking around and saying, it's not that he transferred. It's not that there are well-wishers. It's that it's Alabama. That's what we're angry about. Why in the world aren't the rest of you feeling like this? That's what's got a lot of Tennessee fans aggravated. And for my money, I don't have a single problem with it. As long as you don't go harassment mode, as long as you don't really go too far, as long as you don't start hitting the kid up on Twitter, I don't care if you're angry about that. I mean, if you're sitting in Franklin or Johnson City or Knoxville or Memphis or wherever you are tonight, and you're looking at this saying, dude, this is really rubbing me the wrong way. Well, you know what? You write your check every year, don't you? You pay for your season tickets every year. You buy the merchandise. You invest. You send your donor checks. You're invested. When you're invested, you care. You got financial attachment, but you also have emotional attachment to the program. You got every right to be angry about it. And if anyone looks at you and says, oh, you shouldn't feel that way, that's fine. To each his and her own. But man, there's a term. I'm going to use the acronym. Tennessee fans will know what I'm talking about. There's an acronym that floats around Vol Nation. It's called BVS. For those of you who are Tennessee fans, you know what it stands for. I want to walk a thin line here. I'm not going to tell you what the acronym stands for, but let me just safely say it is metaphorically symbolic of the kind of person that has been beaten down so long they just curl up in the fetal position and they just take it. And that exists. It's real. It can creep into a fan base. And when it does, it takes a long time. It's kind of like they train elephants in the circus. I learned about this one time. Director Emeritus Colin, I don't think we talked about this. Not much circus talk around here. I always wondered when I saw those circus elephants, how are they so well behaved? Well, what they do is they just tie those elephants up in the formative years of their lives to the point where they get trained. They're sort of institutionalized to live in that little radius that they're allowed to go based on how long the rope is. And the thing about it is, you can cut that rope once that elephant's a certain age, and it won't run away. It doesn't go anywhere because it has been trained. It's ingrained in his mind, in her mind. Oh, I can't go any further than there. And that's kind of what that BVS does to a lot of you. You look at Alabama, and you just assume it's supposed to be that way. You look at Henry To'oTo'o walking out of Knoxville on the way to Tuscaloosa, you assume, well, yeah, who wouldn't? You know, who wouldn't? Well, don't let General Nealon hear you saying that. And in the better years, don't let Phil Fulmer hear you saying that, for that matter. I really hope this changes, because you want to talk about the health of a sport. I don't think it's good for one side of the best rivalry or one of the best rivalries in the history of the SEC to be running off at this point. What is it? About a decade and a half's winning streak. Saban didn't even lose to Tennessee in the year they lost to Louisiana Monroe. It's got to change. It's got to change. Josh Heupel, it's on you, brother. That's all you have to do. You have to reverse a trend against the greatest superpower the sport has ever seen. Other than that, things should be pretty easy for you there in Knoxville.